G'day folks, and welcome to the channel, or welcome back to the channel if you've been here before. Now, to talk about today's subject, I have to go back a couple of years to when I was having a look at Ryan Burke's fabulous channel, 60 Cycle Hum. And he was doing his Affordaboard series, and that was a series where he was seeing if he could put together an effects pedal board using nothing but budget pedals. And there was one particular episode where he came across this fuzz that had this ripped, gated Velcro sound, and it was incredibly nasty, and he fell in love with it. I would have called it a Cuvave, but he insisted on calling it a Cuvave, which is the only way you can pronounce this pedal. And I think he said they were $18 US, something like that. So I looked them up and they were $37 Australian. I thought, well, I'm going to have to get one of those for 37 bucks. Now, I don't smoke, but I thought, well, that's probably roughly the price of a packet of cigarettes. Well, I actually asked someone at my local shop how much cigarettes cost these days. Oh, I'm just warning you, by the way, if I'm giving you the shits, I'm just going to give you the time when I actually talk about getting the Velcro rip back in. So if you're really interested in that part of the video, I've time-stamped it in the description box. And here it is. Okay, so I got this pedal in the mail and I plugged it in and there was noise, which hadn't happened on the 60 Cycle Hum version, ironically. And it didn't sound like what Ryan had demonstrated. I'll give you an example of it raw. This is just mic'd up from the amp. There's no EQ effects, and you can get an idea of what the pedal sounded like. So as you can hear there, it's really bassy and woolly, and there's just so much low-end rumble. Things actually were rattling on the shelves when I was playing it. I'm now going to play you the same thing, but now this is splitting the signal through both an American sound amp sim and also the mic'd up sound. And I'm just going to play what it sounds like with a bit of EQ treatment and compression, and then I'll talk a little bit more. It's not an awful pedal by any means. It's got some usable sounds once you sort of trick them up a bit, but it wasn't what I'd heard on the channel. It was different fuzz. So it ended up in the drawer of disappointment. Now, I suppose many of you have got a drawer of disappointment. That's the drawer that has your broken effects pedals and all those guitar leads that you're going to someday getting away to fixing, and your spare mobile phone chargers and Ethernet cables that'll someday come in handy. And as John Fogerty of Creedence Clearwater Revival so eloquently said, someday never comes. Anyway, I think a couple of weeks, maybe months passed, and 60 Cycle Hum did a follow-up video where a lot of people had experienced what I had. They purchased this Cuvave and it just didn't sound like the original demo. It didn't have that Velcro rip and gated sound to it. So Ryan acquired a new version, and first of all, the colour was different. It was a more pale gold. The older was copper, and he played it and it was noisy, which the original hadn't been. And sure enough, it did lack that Velcro rip. Well, it turns out that Cuvave had, quote unquote, fixed the problem. They'd changed the circuit. They'd altered one particular element of it, and that's why it now had more of a traditional sound. It didn't have that gnarly, ripped, gated sound. And then I saw that people much smarter than me, who can actually use a soldering iron, or soldering iron as my North American friends would call them, they were able to locate the exact component that had been altered and switch it back to having the gated sound. Now this is because the Cuvave is a cloned, simplified version of a Zevex Woolly Mammoth pedal, quite an expensive boutique unit, worth well over 10 times what one Cuvave would cost. But if you look at it unlike the Cuvave, which has 3 knobs, this has 4 controls, including a third one that says pinch. And that's like a bias knob, which starves the pedal of voltage, and you can alter how much of that sputter and rip you want. And what they did in the Cuvave, they made it so there was a certain amount of that bias, and then they decided to get rid of it and make it a full sounding pedal. So that's basically a dumb version of how that came about. Anyway, I was on another YouTube video and reading the comments, and someone had mentioned that the Cuvave was actually very good for fuzz bass. Now that made me think, well, yeah, it's this big, fat, woolly sound that would work with bass. Maybe there is a use for this Cuvave after all. I'll take it out of the drawer of disappointment and I'll plug the bass through it and give that a go. And of course, the woolly mammoth is a bass fuzz effect, so it all made sense. So I took it out of the drawer of disappointment, and being lazy, I didn't plug it into the 9-volt adapter that you plug into the wall. What I did, I used one of these little battery adapters. Now these are quite nifty and very convenient, and what happened when I plugged it in, it had a Velcro rip. So I'll give you a listen, and this is with the battery adapter. Well, I was absolutely over the moon about this. I mean, that if anything has even more Velcro rip than the original demo I'd seen. So it seems that if you just have a slightly old battery, and in fact what I just played there was even more rip than when I first did that initial test. So obviously I've been using this battery adapter a bit on other pedals, so it's actually lost a little bit more power. So yeah, once it's starved of those 9 volts, it starts to cack itself. Because like, for example, this pigtone distortion that I've demonstrated before, I tried it with that, and that absolutely sounds maybe a little darker than plugging it into the wall. I've got other pedals, including this New X Roctory unit, that won't even turn on with the battery adapter. So obviously it needs a full 9 volts at all times. So there you go, hallelujah. Now I've got this Cuvave with the Velcro rip, and I haven't had to open it up and provide any surgery. And the other thing is, if I want the other sound, I can have both. So obviously if you do that little operation on it, you're going to reverse the sound and only have one option. So then I thought I'd try it on the bass, turning the fuzz down to about 2 o'clock. Also, this fuzz control, it doesn't really do a lot. It's pretty fuzzy at all levels. Yeah, fuzz down about 2 o'clock, and this is with the 9 volt plugged into the wall, so it's the full Monty. So there you go, that's a full sounding bass with fuzz. Often with a fuzz it'll flatten out the whole sound, but that gives you the integrity of the bottom end but still having a fuzzy sound. So I'm now doubly wrapped. I've got a fuzz with a gnarly Velcro rip to it, and I've also got a fantastic fuzz pedal for bass. The next question is, what does it sound like on the bass with the starved voltage? Well, let's have a listen. So they're almost getting into some square wave bass synthesizer area there. If you have a fretless, you could do some wild stuff with that. So this is a gift that's now giving more. Not only has this Cuvave been rescued from the drawer of disappointment, but it's showing that it's got some real variety of sounds to it. So I think I'll try it now through the P90 style guitar and with the fuzz on full, and 2 versions, one with a gated sound off. So here is the full complement of voltage. I've really come around to the full sound of the Cuvave, though it does have an unacceptable amount of noise, and a really horrible noise too. Anyway, this is the sound of the Cuvave doing a bit of the velcro rip. Now, there's probably some of you out there going, why would you even want to sound like that? Well, it's, it's an effect. It's just something you could put in a song just to add some real attitude. It's an option. It's there, and it's a pretty cool sound. There's some pretty wild sounds in there. There's also some sounds like me after I've had a dodgy Vindaloo as well, but, that's by the by. So it's now tomorrow. Well, it's the day after I did those initial guitar tracks, and then it just hit me. There's the one song I could play that would demonstrate this pedal perfectly. A bit of Norman Greenbaum. Now, I'm probably playing this all wrong, so don't bother commenting saying I play like rubbish, because it's deliberate. I'm one of the best guitarists on YouTube. I just choose to play really badly and really sloppily so I avoid copyright strikes. That is my story, and I'm absolutely sticking to it. So anyway, a bit of spirit in the sky with the Tele style guitar. This is what this pedal is made for, I reckon. Yeah, no shortage of bum notes here, but actually they really bring out just how nasty this pedal can be. Love it. I'm super happy that I made that accidental discovery using the battery adapter. So hopefully for those of you who have bought this pedal, relegated it to your own drawers of disappointment, maybe you'll pull it out again and have some fun with it. Hope you've enjoyed it. I'm going to come back pretty soon with another video on another super cheap fuzz pedal. And then after that, I'm going to do one on a couple of rather expensive fuzz pedals. It's going to be a little bit of fuzz madness on the channel for the next couple of videos. This was supposed to be a short one, but of course it's blown out of all proportion. Oh well, what are you going to do about it? Bye for now, folks. Nice chatting to you.